Welcome, everybody. Thanks for coming to the Lake Bluff School District 65 Board of Education regular meeting for June 12th, 2018. Phil Hood has agreed to be our Secretary Pro Tem, so Phil, could you please take the roll?
Yes, Mark Berry.
Present.
John Morozen.
Present.
Leanne Charlot, absent. Julie Gottschall, absent. Richard Haig.
Present.
Philip Hood, present. Susan Ryder.
Present.
Great. So we have a quorum, and we will begin, and we're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you could all join me by standing. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Again, thanks for coming, and we are working with a new audio system, so bear with us if we have technical glitches along the way, but I'm not expecting that. We offer the opportunity at the beginning and end of every meeting for anybody in the audience who would like to address the board. So if you'd like to, please feel free to come forward and address the board and state your name and your address first, if you would.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes, it's hooked into our system. You know what, Joy, could you go like this and see if it's on?
It's not.
Okay, so we have to turn.
I was joking, but.
All right, now give it a minute.
there
There,
we
now
go.
you're on.
Okay,
Oh.
okay, we're all on.
Hi, I think most of you know me. I'm Joy Marquis, and I live at 117 West Blodgett Avenue. And first of all, I want to thank everyone for being here, because I know you guys are all volunteers, and thank you. I'm here to talk about standard-based grading tonight. I know there's been a lot of discussion about it, and I just wanted to kind of go on record and share what some parents are feeling in the community. For the past 2 weeks, I've really debated about coming tonight and speaking. And I thought originally what I wanted to share about standard-based reporting was the process that you guys went through to institute it. It's certainly something that a lot of parents in the community are discussing, and that this is a major change to how we're measuring our children's academic achievements. And it would have been nice for this process to have been a little more inclusive rather than so informative. And by that, I just mean last year around this time, an email went out that just said, you know, we're going to standard-based grading, and parents were like, what are we doing? And so I think there was a little bit at that point of parent pushback saying, what are we actually doing? And so administration came back and made a few changes and said, okay, we're not going to actually go to standard-based grading for all grades this year. We're going to push it back. We're going to do this hybrid model. And then the longer I thought about it, the more I realized I've been involved with this parent advisory board for standard-based grading. And so for the year, I've been trying to sort of understand the crux of it. And I think part of what some parents are feeling right now, and I'm happy to represent parents that aren't here right now and that kind of have this feeling, is that there don't seem to be a lot of benchmarks or a good roadmap for parents. So last year in August, I was shown a parent handbook that was in the works, great, but it never actually came to fruition. It's still not done. So I think for parents, we're sort of stumbling through this new process, and we don't quite have a clear understanding of what the standards are, or what the numbers mean, or if the numbers actually mean anything. Because as we try to look at the numbers and say, okay, my son's at a 3 or my son's at a 4, what does that actually relate to? And I think that was even talked about in the May 1st meeting, where someone said, is there a way we can let parents know about benchmarking? And the answer was, well, no, every child just sort of learns at their own level, you know, at their own pace. Which I think for most parents, they're kind of like, all right, well, then how am I supposed to know when my kid needs some help? So I started thinking about that. And then I thought a little bit about just the general communication of how this new grading system was put into effect. And, you know, I feel like this is a big change for parents. You know, I've had people tell me, oh, you're just afraid of change. And okay. I mean, we all go through change. You know, I don't think anyone's afraid of change. I think they just want to know that the change was made for a reason and that there's some sort of rationale behind why we're doing it. And I think that's what's lacking a little bit in this situation is parents either are lacking that information or that information isn't even out there. So, for instance, sixth grade parents, incoming sixth grade parents, most of them have no idea that this change has been enacted. Most of them have no idea that their children will not be getting letter grades when they enter the middle school. And if you tell them that, like, oh, did you know they're enacting this whole new thing at the middle school? They're like, no, I didn't know that. Why are they doing that? So there's a big piece of the puzzle, right? Bridging into fifth grade to sixth grade parents so that they understand what's going on. Additionally, I feel like there were podcasts this year, and there was information, and there were a lot of informational meetings at 6 p.m., which, if any of you know, 6 p.m. is quite a challenging time for any parent to get anywhere. I'm usually shuttling kids, I'm making dinner, some parents are coming home from work. So 6 o'clock in the evening, to say, oh, not too many parents showed up at those meetings, well, no, because they were busy. So I understand that the district was trying to kind of push some of this information out, but again, all informative. There was never a question of like, what's your opinion on this? What do you think of this? And maybe that's not a parent's role, but I feel like I'm putting my child through school and I'm heavily invested in their education. So I feel like this is sort of a major change to the schools that does involve parents. So I did sit on the parent advisory board. There were 5 of us on that board. 3 people did not have children in the high school. 2 of them did not have children in the middle school. So I feel like right there you had people that have children that are really young and they don't know what's coming down the line. And I think standard-based grading in an elementary standpoint, in an elementary school is fantastic. I think it works really well. Is there a time limit?
I'm not going to enforce a time limit, but it would
I'll
be
wrap
good
it
if
up.
we could get
I'll
to
wrap
some,
it up.
if you have suggestions,
I
that
do
would
have
be
a suggestion.
awesome.
So I think the advisory board, first of all, we were told we weren't allowed to really give an opinion on standard-based grading. It was more that this is what we're doing, and how can we refine it better to sell it to parents. So you had 3 people on there that didn't even have children that had even entered the high school yet, and that's my main point. And I know I'm called a grade trainer now. I know the term. But my biggest concern with this program is our kids transferring into the high school. And I have said it over and over and over again. It's a huge transition for our children. I have a child in the high school. I also have a child who just graduated 8th grade, and I have a child entering the middle school. So this is something I'm aware of, and I'm a part of all 3 of it. I watched my now rising junior, I guess she's a junior now. I watched her enter the high school, and I saw her struggle a little bit. They enter into high school, it's 25% of the kids are Lake Bluff kids. They enter into the high school. It's hard. There's lots of homework. The homework counts. Tests are deadlines. And I feel like to give our kids kind of this open-ended retesting option, to give them, to really not put any weight on homework, does not benefit them. And I know I've heard all the arguments, like in life you can always redo things, unless you're playing in the big game, then you can't redo that. Or unless you're doing a presentation to your boss, and then you can't redo that. And there's certain times in life where you just have to have the self-discipline to actually go in, take a test, do something, and do it well at that moment. And that's what I'm trying to teach my children, and I think there's a lot of other parents out there trying to teach their children that as well. So I'll wrap it up, because I like to talk, sorry. But I figured there was some time since no one else is here. What I would ask the school district to consider, if they had any ability to consider this, I would really love it, is to let the 6th graders do standard-based reporting, and then to slowly in 7th and 8th grades start using grades for the older kids. I really think it will help with their transition into high school. I really do. And I know I am not the majority of this. The majority of this board believes differently, but I'm telling you, I'm living it. I know a few of you have lived it. I think it would really benefit them not to have another hurdle to have to get used to as they enter into the high school. And that would be what I would ask. And maybe in the process of doing that in 7th and 8th grade, we can figure out a way to deflate grade inflation so that the grades actually represent what they're supposed to represent, and our kids are doing the work they're supposed to do, the same as what they're doing here with the standard-based grading, but the grades are not so inflated that they don't mean anything. That's it. I actually, just leaving you on this, I heard a parent the other day say, I know I should be more involved with the new grading system, I'm too busy, and really, how important is middle school anyway? So, thanks.
Thanks, Joy.
Thank you.
You might offer, we have a second opportunity at the very end. If you'd like to sit through this, you can speak to us again.
No, I don't, I think I've said,
Yeah, okay.
I think I've said my piece.
Okay, I just
need
wanted to make sure
yeah.
we weren't rushing you.
No, my son's at baseball, so back to the field, but thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joy.
Thank you.
Okay. So now we're going to move on to item 5, where we offer the opportunity to the board to provide, to bring up an idea for a future agenda or discussion item if they think there's something we need to discuss in the future or tonight that was not on the agenda or we need to get on an agenda in the future. So,
I do have, I'm still going to talk a little bit about the teacher shortage. And I would like to hold off until August or September because the new law that was passed on lowering the 6% bumps to 3% bumps is also going to have part of this discussion too. So I want to see, they're actually talking a little bit about the rules about that. We'll be closer to negotiations by then. So I know Phil had asked me to do that, and I wanted to make sure that you knew I didn't forget that.
Thanks.
okay, anybody else? All right, so we're going to move on and go to our reports, which is going to be brief because there's no principal reports, there's no PTO, there's no alliance.
Jay has a report.
Mr. Khan, our Director of Business and Operations, has an update for us.
Okay, I just wanted to update the board on the musical from this spring. This is you have in front of you a financial summary that just shows how they did relative to budget, and they were very careful with their money this year. They did a great job. I think they put on an outstanding show and stayed within budget, and came out. They ended up spending about what they brought in, or they brought in a little bit more than what they spent on supplies and services. And then the stipends are the stipends. So I think they did a good job, and this shows you the comparison versus last year and then the year before that.
So my only question is, why has the revenue gone down?
That is something that we talked about. I met with the team and showed them the results, and we talked about it, and they're not sure. I think the amount of donations is lower. I think their programs, they didn't go out and sell as many ads and stuff in the programs, and so they're looking at possibly doing that next year. This year, because we did everything electronically, there was a lot more detail on where the revenue came from, whereas in the past it was I just had cash and checks handed to me and didn't really know where it was coming from. So they have a lot better data now and are going to dig into that as they plan for next year.
They've done a great job because it was an outstanding musical within budget.
Yeah.
So I think that all of Jay's work and our discussions here at the board level have really paid off. We have outstanding staff that do that. I don't know how many of you went to the musical. Did anyone? Yeah. John and Rich? It was a great musical. We have very talented kids on staff, so it was good.
Okay, and I don't have a report, and
I do.
Dr. Sophie does.
I have a very quick report. Last Friday was our end of the school year, a day later than we had wished because of the snow day we had when I was coincidentally on my honeymoon. So I do want to make a comment that I had emailed all of the board about the small fire we had on Thursday at the middle school in the kitchen. It really created and gave us the opportunity to analyze our amount of time to pull alarms, our ability to call 911, how long it takes for our alarm company to contact dispatch in Lake Bluff, how long it took from dispatch to get the fire department over. It has been a great opportunity for us to look at that data, and once again, I want to thank the Lake Bluff Fire Department. They were outstanding and awesome to work with, and had I think it was right around a 4-minute response time, which is a very outstanding response time for a fire department. And as you all know, that they're a volunteer fire department, so I think recognizing them is always going to be something I try to do. So it was a good opportunity for us.
That made me think of a couple things too. I had a couple people comment to me on how well they thought the graduation went. And so, hats off to you and your staff for running that, but also for the kids for doing what they need to do to make that happen smoothly. And also, just as we should do at the end of every year, recognize our teachers and staff for all their hard work and really thank them and tell them they've done a great job, and we really appreciate their hard work. And thanks for being great teachers and making our schools great, and have a great summer, if anybody's listening.
To everyone who's listening.
Then moving on to this, item 7, discussions and presentations. Mr. Khan will review our 2018-2019 tentative budget.
Well, the presentation's working, so that's a good thing.
Yep.
Just so you guys know what's ahead, this is going to be so cool, because in the future, when you plug in your laptop to get the presentation, the projector, the screen is just going to drop down automatically. So we have a lot of new things coming.
Okay, so I'm going to go through this pretty quickly. As you can see from the date, this is the exact same presentation that was given last month. So I'm just doing it again for the benefit of the community and for the board if there are any questions.
I just highlight a couple main slides.
Okay. So,
So I had a question.
Yep.
That I thought would be helpful if you highlighted, but it's right there at the top.
okay.
How are we paying for that air conditioning?
That's a good thing to review, too.
Okay, so we're paying for the air conditioning. As you can see from this, we've got $1 million expenditures in capital budgets for next year. That's going to be the air conditioning. And we're going to have money left over this year because there was some money for the budget, for the air conditioner in this year's budget that won't be spent in June. And we also have an operating surplus, so I'm anticipating anywhere from $500,000 to $700,000 from this year's budget going into fund balance and being used towards the air conditioners. In addition, there's current operating, next year I'm projecting an operating surplus of $850,000, and that will also be going to the air conditioners. So, and the reason that we have a big operating surplus is basically because all my capital money that I would have put in my operating budget is going to the capital projects fund instead.
Jay, I'm going to add something at the end of this presentation about the playgrounds over at elementary. So maybe if you could get to your end slides down here and just your summary slides.
Sure.
Can I though, while we're just talking about the AC, in case somebody's tuning in or listening for the first time, can you give a 2-second update on what happened and why are we at this point?
Sure. At the beginning of, in the fall of this school year, we had a cooling coil fail on one of our giant air conditioning units on the top of the elementary school. It's about the size of a school bus, and there's 2 of them up there, and they cool the building. And then kind of successively over the course of the year, other additional units have failed. And it's mostly as a result of the cooling coils. We have a water-cooled unit, which is something that's utilized in much larger buildings and generally in warmer climates. And so the engineers have looked at it, and there's a variety of guesses as to why it failed. But bottom line, it could be that the equipment, it was a bad batch of equipment. It could be something with the water, or just that it wasn't the right equipment for the job. But the air conditioners have failed, and we made it through the winter expecting to replace just the 2 units this spring. And then when we turned them on again in the spring, the additional 3 units, also 2 of them had failed. So we made the decision just to replace them all and start over with more traditional units. And we've done, our maintenance supervisor, I do want to point out, has done a great job keeping the teachers
Phenomenal.
and the students cool. We have fans all over the building. We've been cooling it down overnight with outside air. And we only had one day this year, 1 or 2 days where it was really, where it was somewhat uncomfortable in the building. So we were able to get through the year without the air conditioning, but we're looking forward to getting it replaced this summer.
And the replacement units are air-cooled, correct?
The replacement units are air-cooled. I mean, the other part of this is it was a LEED building design, and I think they were trying to use some technology that was maybe cutting edge 8 years ago, and whenever you do that, there's always a risk. So these are traditional units. We just put one in at the middle school this year, and there's a long history of operating
Successful.
successfully. So
Jay, do you have any idea how many school days a year the air conditioning is used?
The building really, when it was built, was designed for air conditioning, so the way the air circulates through the building, so it's used all the time. The way the system works, it provides both heating and cooling at the same time, and then it adjusts the amount of each to get the desired temperature. So the compressors are running a good part of the year, as long as the temperature is above freezing, so that because it is a water-cooled unit.
And the building was not designed for opening windows, like, for instance, the school that I went to was designed for open windows and no air conditioning.
I'd say we got really lucky this spring. Everybody's been complaining about what a cold and wet spring we've had, but I've been actually secretly happy about it, because when we get that lake breeze, it gets pretty cool here, and we were able to remain comfortable. We also traditionally have summer school at the elementary school, which can be hot during the summer, so it gets used quite a bit.
Okay, thanks.
So the other thing, while you're getting to the end of the slide to talk about summary, I think it's important to talk about the timeline for people that are watching. A couple years ago, Jay and I made the decision that it was better for us to pass the tentative budget in June so that the board saw it before we went over the summer vacation. So we do our assumptions in May. We do our tentative budget approval in June. And then when you come back in August, there's always revisions over the summer as we move into the new fiscal year. So you'll see it again in August. You'll see it again in September, and then for final review at the end of the month in September. So we really do review it often, and this is one of the many times that we will review our fund balance, because that goes hand in hand with our budget discussions.
And also, we're going to start spending against this budget on July 1st, so we want the board to approve it prior to that,
Right.
and then we'll make revisions towards September, but we want to get your input and approval before we start spending.
So if you want to go to the end of your presentation where you do the summaries, I think that's probably the
Sure.
best. This presentation is on our website under the board agenda from both last month and this month.
Can you just go to the end? I can't. No,
With this new audiovisual system, they no longer have to point the camera at the screen. It's directly broadcast onto the screen and the recording of it, so.
And the
people at home
picture's
will-
better.
Will see things clearly.
That's a good one.
well, I was looking for the fund balance one, but. So. Or just, let me control it so that it's not working.
I've been having problems with that too, so we may want to look at getting a new one of those.
Do you point it at the thing above you?
No, it's just your computer, I think. Do you want to just go through the fund balance slide? Is that?
That one?
That one, and then any summary slides.
Okay, well, this is pretty much the summary. So this shows, I think, the question about how we're going to be funding the air conditioning and any capital needs that we have. Again, we'll have a net deficit for next year, but when you combine that with the net surplus from this year, I think our fund balance will actually be increasing if you look at these 2 years combined. So right now, tentatively, we're projecting the fund balance still towards the upper end of our target range of 30 to 50% at 44% of operating expenditures. So we'll have $7 million in the bank at the end of next year, provided there aren't a lot of additional expenditures next year that aren't included in this budget. I think Jean was going to mention one.
Well, I wanted to talk actually about a couple. At the last meeting, I had mentioned to you that we were going to have our 20-year facility plan done very shortly. And we may want to consider next year, I will be bringing it back to you, either planning for replacing the boilers at the middle school or just purchasing them.
Right.
Based upon costs, to get that off of our list. That's a big one. I think that I also wanted to mention, along with the air conditioners at elementary, have also built in about $77,000 to restructure the main office for safety reasons, which I think is very important. On top of that, which is a relatively new development, we have some parents coming in with younger kids that the playground is not accessible because we have wood chips on one of our playgrounds. And we have another parent that is concerned about, the little rubber pieces. Also, there's been a lot of news about the possibility of being unsafe. Jay assures me that what we're looking at is just kind of a straight rubber playground that would be accessible, because right now the building is not the playground. And we may want to consider that for both playgrounds, because that would eliminate any parent concerns about what are the little rubber chunk things called?
It's just
Ground up tires.
Rubber chunks? The
rubber
chunks.
mulch.
Old tires.
But in general, I think
That's really what they are.
Yeah.
it's a good point. We'll have the facility plan, and we'll be able to see how much, how urgent it is to do some of these things and be able to plan it out. And we do, even though we are operating on a net deficit next year, we do still have some room, as you can see by the ending fund balance, to address any, some of those capital needs that we have. So,
And ADA accessibility may need to come first before anything. In fact, I think that we're going to be getting costs over the summer that may need to be done right away.
The Park District just redid two of their major playgrounds. One's right down the street from me. I don't know what they used on the surface, but it's worth looking into.
We'll have to go over there and take a look.
Because a lot of kids use that all summer long.
right.
But I think in the discussions about the budget, I think it's important that everybody knows, on top of the air conditioners, we also restructured the office for safety.
Right.
And we're going to have to look into the playgrounds. And then my other concern, since I've been here, has always been the boilers at middle school, because I'd rather be proactive
Yep.
than dealing with it in the middle of the winter. So,
And there are some energy efficiency grants and things that we can use to help offset some of that. So,
We had a time issue with the air conditioners because of the cranes coming in and you couldn't do it. Is it the same with the boilers?
that's a good question.
Yeah, I mean, the boiler, it'll have to be planned out. I'm assuming we can't do it while kids are in the building, but I don't know how long it takes.
Or how much disruption occurs?
Right,
Something I should
piping
find
and
out
things
about
like
that.
that. I
Is
think the
there-
new units are pretty small, like the new high-efficiency ones aren't quite the same size as the giant boiler we have, so it may not be an issue.
Is it lined in asbestos?
The old one, the existing one?
I don't,
Steve is taking care of the asbestos areas, because I know that was something big a couple of years ago
Yeah,
that I
No, but
talked to
some
him
of those
about.
old boilers, you gotta bust them up to get them out of the building, and they're lined in asbestos. You gotta abate it.
that would be part of right now, there's no danger. We have asbestos inspections every 3 years, and that was not pointed out as a
Plus, we've had asbestos removed when we had the renovations, so we'll have to keep
Right.
that in mind, though, because I'm sure that as they remove it, they're going to have to do the,
But
Typical abatement process.
obviously any estimate we get, it would include removing the old boiler, and they would build that into the cost.
It's original to the building.
I don't know.
I'm
It
pretty
probably
sure it
is.
is.
1950s.
Yeah,
It's probably got
because
asbestos
it was
in the
built right
boiler.
before I was born, and usually boilers last at least that long, so.
Okay.
I'm going to last a lot longer than that, but I'm just saying the boilers usually give out around this age, so.
I wonder how it is that we didn't do that 2 years ago, and now, just 2 years after the major work at the middle school, we're considering doing
We
it.
we didn't have money.
Okay.
It was way outside of the scope. We could barely get done. Keeping in mind, we still have locker rooms that we've got to do and the casework. Obviously, to me, the boiler is still working, but it's like going to the racetrack and putting money on the horse.
How long are you gonna
understand.
keep rolling the dice on that?
Right.
one? I don't know.
Not long.
What
I
are we
think,
talking about for order of magnitude on new boilers? Are we talking 100,000, 500,000, a million? What are we talking about?
Say 100,000, but I don't know. I mean,
no, I think it's more than that, but I don't think it's
It's not
500. I think
500,000, but it's in that,
It was cost prohibited because we actually looked at that. I was kind of hoping we could do it with the renovation.
this summer, we are putting in a pump, so we're more concerned about the pumps failing and not being able to circulate the water than the boiler failing. I mean, that would be problematic as well, but they're a little bit more reliable.
I would feel better getting that done sooner rather than later. So
Making me nervous talking about that.
When you see the facility plan,
I'm-
that'll be one of the first things.
It'll
so.
go because I'm on the board and I've replaced 3 boilers. So
Just don't want it to
I'm
go
just-
when we have a
it
big
follows me
Arctic,
wherever I go.
big freeze and it's really cold outside
No, I
and the
think-
boiler fails, so.
And that's why when we get that facility plan, which I'd
That's why I
like to
forced it
have
now.
pretty soon, so we can have discussions with the board and be thoughtful on getting that done.
Right.
But we have a balanced budget. Keep in mind that there'll be changes over the summer, there always is. But we will be asking you to give us approval for the tentative budget this evening. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thanks, Jay.
All right. Now we are going to move on to strategic plan.
Well, I'm not sure if you all took a look at the strategic plan. It's kind of exciting for
It
me
is
to see
exciting.
it
Yeah,
in
it's great.
entirety. I thought it was a really good mix of the things that I loved in the old strategic plan and some new. We still are going to do some final edits for proofing and replacing any pictures if we need to, but it looks beautiful, and I have to give credit to Shelley. She did a great job with a lot of this, and then Kevin did a great job with the indicators. I did want to point out that the indicators section at the end, which we've gone through with the board, is what I call a living document. In our true school form, we're still finding out daily about assessments and things that may change. So the way that it's written now, we can easily go in and change and still keep trend data in here. So I think this will be, as we do it next year, we'll be able to really kind of polish it up a little bit. So by 1920, it's very usable. Well, 1920,
Oh,
it'll be, 2020 will be
meant-
perfect, but
1920 is what I thought you meant.
so it should be coming. I did also want to point out that the feedback from the last session, I put in your board packets with answers to all the questions, and that all went to the Strategic Planning Committee. None of them showed up this evening, but I have thanked all of them personally. We had a great group of people to provide us feedback. So I'm bringing this to you. It's kind of exciting. Strategic Plan 2023. It gives a great roadmap to keep us all on a solid path as we look towards transition in the next couple of years. So I will be asking for your approval on this evening also.
No, thanks to you and to your team. I mean,
They did a
you-
phenomenal job.
I could tell it wasn't your first time at the rodeo with this one. I mean, it was the way you engaged the community, and the sessions, I think, were really efficient and productive, and congratulations on getting it
Thank you. They
to us
did.
now.
And a lot of work.
Yeah, a
So
lot of
thank you
work.
for all the hours you guys put against it. We appreciate it. And it's good to be able to to have that roadmap for the balance of your career, but also to hand off to your predecessor. And
Successor.
successor, sorry, and the board that follows too. So it's all in place.
Our
And it looks
successors.
beautiful.
Yeah.
And every team member put in a lot of time on this, and I have to just thank all of them. They did a great job.
Any questions on that? This is all available on the website after we approve it?
Yep.
So if anybody has questions, they can address them to Dr. Sophie in the future. Finally,
Enrollment update.
Dr. Rubenstein will bring us an enrollment update.
You, once again, have in front of you an enrollment update for, that is current as of this morning. No major changes to anything, but we wanted to keep you informed about what is going on with all of the current grade level class sizes. We continue to keep an eye on the kindergarten enrollment of 91. We've had actually a couple of students move out and two more move in to replace those students. And so we remain steady right there. And so we're right on track to start the school year in around the same place that we did this school year. So summer is a very, very busy time for lots of people to register and enroll anew. We're pretty sure that anybody who is going to leave the district at this point has probably informed us, but that's not always the case, so.
So no changes yet, but we will continue to monitor. Remember, a couple of years ago, we had to change our staffing, I think, in July. So we will just continue to monitor and let you know.
Are there any grades that concern you that are approaching?
Kindergarten is the only one we're really keeping an eye on right now.
Okay. And so the overall enrollment is projected to be,
Remain about the same.
About 20 down total. Right?
Yes.
About 20 down
The
total.
overall enrollment
Right.
is projected to be 20
Oh,
down.
I'm looking at
below
elementary.
At the middle school.
Right.
Because we graduated a class of 118, and we're bringing in a class of 93. Yes, so we're going to be down slightly, but we're adding students into other classes.
My guess is by the time all the numbers are in, if I had to guess, I think we'd be about the same as we were this year by the time all is said and done, but I've been right more than I've been wrong, but I have been wrong in my estimates with this too, so. Thanks for keeping track of that for us, Kevin, I appreciate it.
any other questions for Dr. Rubenstein on that? All right, we're going to move on to action items, and some of them with discussion. The first item is item 8A, the approval of the 2018-2019 tentative budget, which Jay discussed and shared with us earlier. We saw it at our last meeting. We'll again revisit this at the end of the summer. But we need a motion to approve the 2018-2019 tentative budget as presented by the administration.
So moved. Second.
Any questions or comments, concerns, clarification needed? All right, so we have a motion. Okay, so we have a roll call vote, please.
John Morozin,
Yes.
Leanne Charlot, absent. Julie Gottschall, absent. Richard Haig,
Yes.
Philip Hood, yes. Susan Ryder,
Yes.
Mark Barry.
Yes, motion's approved. The approval of the final strategic plan for the years 2018 through 2023. The board is asked to approve the final strategic plan, and you've got all that information in your board book. We've already seen a presentation on it. Is there any other questions or comments or clarifications that anybody wants to make? So may I have a motion to approve the 2018 to 2023 strategic plan as presented by the administration?
So moved?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Leanne Charlot, absent. Julie Gottschall, absent. Richard Haig,
Yes.
Philip Hood, yes. Susan Ryder,
Yes.
Mark Barry,
Yes.
John Morozin.
Yes.
Motion's approved. The item 8C is the approval of the non-licensed retirement contracts. These were discussed in closed session, and we're asking for approval for the retirement contracts. Do we say
You
that?
can say their names out loud
For
now.
Alice Wegner and Jean Amundson. Any comments, questions, concerns? May I have a motion to approve the non-licensed retirement contracts for Jean Amundson and Alice Wegner as presented by the administration?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Julie Gottschall, absent. Richard Haig,
Yes.
Philip Hood, yes. Susan Ryder,
Yes.
Mark Barry,
Yes.
John Morozin.
Yes.
The motion is approved.
Leanne Charlot, absent. Yeah.
Absent.
Yeah. Do I need to read those out if they're not here for each one?
No, you don't have to.
Cool. Good, we're gonna fly now.
The item D is the approval of the 2017-2018 final school calendar. This is an annual approval that is sent to the regional office and then sent to the state for final reporting. Anything you want to add to that?
No, it's the final public school calendar, and we only took one snow day, so that was a good year.
And it's included in your board packet.
Yes.
Anybody have any questions or comments on that? Okay, can I have a motion to approve the 2017-2018 final school calendar as presented by the administration?
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Here's your favorite one every year. I know you guys love this one, and remember, it has to be passed.
Whether you agree with it or
The
not.
approval of the Prevailing Wage Act as per Illinois School Code. The Prevailing Wage Act, this resolution must be approved every year in June. May I have a motion to approve the Prevailing Wage Act as required by Illinois School
So
Code?
move.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Philip Hood, yes. Susan Ryder,
Yes.
Mark Barry,
Yes.
John Morozin,
Yes.
Richard Haig.
No.
The motion's approved. Thanks, Rich.
Oh, there's always a rascal.
Okay, item F, approval of hazardous routes. Pursuant to Public Act 94-0439, the board is required by law to annually review the hazardous conditions, but is no longer required to send a copy of the resolution to the State Superintendent of Education. The annual resolution should remain on file in the district for audit purposes. This is also done annually, and there's been no change from last year. This is having to do with bus routes, right? Okay. Anything you guys want to add to that? Questions, comments, concerned by the board? May I have a motion to approve the hazardous routes as presented by the administration?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. That's an all in favor one, right, I think? Approval of annual banking depositories. For best practice internal control, the board is asked each year to approve existing banking relationships. Jean or
Jay, you
Jay,
want
do
to
you
talk
want to
about that?
add, say anything there?
No, just according to board policy that the board should annually review and approve the list of all depositories that hold public funds. We're not changing any. The list remains the same as last year, and it is in the memo. You're also required to apprise you of our collateral agreements, which is also attached. And then we do need to reapprove the resolution for the 2018 and 19 year for deposits in liquid asset public fund investments. That's basically through PMA. So that's what you'd be approving today.
So five of those are with Lake Forest Bank and Trust locally, and one is the Illinois School District Liquid Asset Fund?
Correct.
Okay. May I have a motion to approve the annual banking depositories presented by the administration?
So moved.
Second?
Roll call vote, please.
Mark Barry,
Yes.
John Morozin,
Yes.
Richard Haig,
Yes.
Philip Hood, yes. Susan Ryder.
Yes.
The motion is approved. Item H is the approval of the health savings account contribution renewal. This is an annual approval for health savings accounts. Please give us an update, Jean or Jay.
Jay?
The idea here was to have the board contribute to health savings account as a way to give employees an incentive to alleviate some of the risk of going with the high deductible health plan. We've not had great success in getting many people to switch, so we're going to be reevaluating our plans next year and looking at doing some other different things, but for continuity reasons and so that to not disrupt the people who are currently in the plan, I'm requesting one more year of a cost-neutral contribution to the health savings account for the high deductible health plan.
Until we possibly change it next year with
Next year when we
negotiations.
negotiate, we'll be looking at introducing additional plans and revamping our healthcare offerings.
Any questions for Jay? Comments? Okay, may I have a motion to approve the health savings account contribution renewal as presented by the administration?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
John Morozin,
Yes.
Richard Haig,
Yes.
Philip Hood, yes. Susan Ryder,
Yes.
Mark Barry.
Yes. The motion is approved. Item I, the approval of the workman's work comp and property casualty insurance renewals. This is an annual approval for property casualty and workers' compensation renewals. Anything you'd like to add to that?
The
Information.
only thing would be that we're looking at switching our workers' comp coverage from the Hartford to accident fund. We are receiving a premium savings and additional support with this new insurer. And we're partnering with other districts to it's not a pool in the sense that CLIC is a pool where we pool our risk, but it's more of a pool in the sense that we're gaining economies of scale by joining with other districts and just purchasing standalone policies. So it's a little bit of a change from last year.
Okay. Questions for Jay? Just for anybody who's interested, all the details for all these approvals that we do are provided in the board packet, which is available online to anybody who needs to dig into it a little bit deeper. So may I have a motion to approve the workman's comp and property casualty insurance renewals as presented by the administration?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
No, I did it. I'm allowed.
Oh, you seconded. I thought you were asking for a second.
All right, Richard Haig,
Yes.
Philip Hood, yes. Susan Ryder,
Yes.
Mark Barry,
Yes.
John Morozin,
Yes.
The motion's approved. Item J, the approval of computer purchases and leases. The administration recommends that the board approve the purchases of computers as detailed in the memo included in the board packet. Jay, you want to give us the highlights?
That's actually going to be Kevin.
Oh, okay.
At the last board meeting, you see sort of a preliminary overview about what these costs would look like. And so now we have the almost exact costs. These will actually probably be a little bit lower than this for the cost of the Chromebooks. But we ask for your approval this evening. That this is something that the Technology Committee has been reviewing and studying almost all year. And so the total cost for FY19 for new devices only is coming in a little bit over $156,000.
Do you have any comments as a technology committee
No, it
member?
was thoroughly researched, got a lot of input from teachers and users, so, no, I'm comfortable with this.
Any other questions or comments on that? May I have a motion to approve the computer purchase and lease as presented by the administration?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Richard Hagan?
Affirmative.
I think that's a yes.
Philip Hood,
Affirmative.
yes.
Yes.
Susan Ryder?
Yes.
Mark Barry?
Yes.
John Morozin?
Yes.
The motion is
Who
approved.
was my second on that?
I think it was Mark.
Wasn't that me? That was last time.
I don't
Oh.
think we have.
Oh, maybe I'll do it.
All right, fine, we're good.
Item
Fir-
K.
First timer over here, so.
You're doing a great job.
It's all smooth. Item K, approval of licensed staff retirement. As discussed in closed session, we are asking for the approval on a retirement contract for Lori Brown. Any questions or comments on that? May I have a motion to approve the licensed staff retirement for Lori Brown as presented by the administration?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Richard Haig?
Yes.
Philip Hood, yes. Susan Ryder?
Yes.
Mark Barry?
Yes.
John Morozin?
Yes.
Motion is approved. And item L, we're talking about the approval of updated job descriptions for maintenance and custodial workers. Mr. Khan is asking for approval of updated job descriptions for his staff as the first step in restructuring and analyzing the maintenance and custodial duties of the district. Would you like to add anything to that? No? Any questions for Mr. Khan? May I have a motion to approve the updated job descriptions for custodians and maintenance as presented by the administration?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
You don't have to do a roll call on job descriptions.
What if it changes and costs us money? No?
No,
Okay,
it
all
doesn't
in
cost
favor?
us any more money.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved.
I like that.
As long as it doesn't cost us money, then we're good. Item M, approval of monthly P-card limit increase. We are asking for approval to increase the purchasing credit limit on the district P-card as outlined in Jay's memo. Jay, could you give us the highlight of why we're asking for that?
Sure. Our current credit limit is $50,000 a month, and there's a grace period between, just like your normal credit card, where you're charging the next month's charges before you're paid off the previous month's charges. So that's really kind of a month and a half's worth of money. We've recently started using the P card to pay routine utility bills, gas, electric, waste, cable, and it's easier to do so on the P card, and we earn cash back from these payments as a district. And these payments are authorized to go without board approval because they're recurring utility payments. So it's a good use of the P card, and that's been eating up a greater portion of our limit. And so we're running out of funds for our normal
Transactions.
transactions.
Okay, and I think I also read somewhere here that we get some kind of
We get a
incentive.
rebate,
Cash back.
No air miles or anything like that?
air miles, but it's a nice little check we get at the end of each year.
Any other questions for Mr. Khan? I have a motion to approve the monthly P-card purchasing limit as presented by the administration.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Susan Ryder?
Yes.
Mark Barry?
Yes.
John Morozin?
Yes.
Richard Haig?
Yes.
Phil Hood, yes.
The motion is approved. Personnel report, this is the most current one, right?
Yep.
Okay, this month, we are talking about a lot of things, so bear with me here on personnel report. A licensed retirement of Lori Brown at the elementary school effective June 30th of 2020. A non-licensed retirement for Jean Amundson, the administrative assistant at the district office, effective December 31 of 2018. Also Alice Wegner, a secretary at the elementary school, effective September 30th, 2019. We are including a non-licensed new hire, Dave Pokey, apologize for butchering people's names, who's a teaching assistant, who's replacing Ann Worthen at the elementary school for the 18-19 school year. Summer school licensed personnel of Catherine, these are all the same, right?
I would just read their names and then,
Because let's just double check them. So Catherine Crosswhite, Nicola Keela, Teresa Prasad Abbas, Christina Wagner, Margaret Linforth, and Ann Kohlmeyer. Oh, that's different, sorry.
she's the
And
different
so
one.
those 5 are summer school. And then a licensed new hire who's Ann Kohlmeyer Dahlin, is a speech and language pathologist at .8 FTE at the elementary school for the 18-19 school year. So I have a motion, may I have a motion to approve that personnel report?
So moved.
Second?
Roll call vote, please.
Mark Barry,
Yes.
John Morozin,
Yes.
Richard Haig,
Yes.
Philip Hood, yes. Susan Ryder.
Yes.
Yes, the motion is approved. Item O, the consent agenda. This month's consent agenda includes the P-card report, the bills report, the impress report, the treasurer's report, the open session meeting minutes for May 22nd, 2018 regular board meeting, the June 4th, 2018 special board meeting, the closed session meeting minutes for May 22nd, 2018 regular meeting, and June 4th, 2018 special Board of Ed meeting. Do we want to pull any of those to have them discussed separately? No, so may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented by the administration?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mark Barry,
Yes.
John Morozin,
Yes.
Richard Haig,
Yes.
Philip Hood, yes. Susan Ryder.
Yes.
The motion is approved. That is it for our approvals, and the FOIA requests, they are all detailed in the board book. Is there anything we need to highlight publicly, or is it all standard stuff?
all standard.
The details are in the board book available online if people are interested. Offer the opportunity for anybody to address the board, make public comment if you'd like it. Not seeing any. Anybody on the board have any final comments, questions, concerns, issues, jokes?
I want to remind everybody, this isn't a joke, though. I want to remind everybody that our July meeting is now going to be at 7 a.m. So I'll remind everybody as we get closer, it's simply going to be because for bills and for personnel, there will not be time for a closed session at all. So if we need a closed session, we'd be having it in August.
Is that the next meeting, the July meeting?
July, do you have the date? 24th.
Wow, big gap.
Okay,
I'll miss you guys.
so at 7:57, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you all.
So what are you doing this month?
What am I doing? I'm taking the
You don't
last
get